record. All right, hopefully everyone can see a process flow chart now. And this process flow chart is what we're going to be talking about today. We're introducing this as a mechanism, a structure, a recommended procedure or recommended flow, workflow pattern or process that we think will help people efficiently take their migrated class to a teachable format. As I hope you've been told, there's no such thing as a migration from one LMS to another that results in a teachable course shell after the migration without instructor effort. That just does not happen. There's just differences in the way the data structures work on the back end, naming and so on, that causes problems. We've been doing some work on this, Sonia and I and others, and we found that there are, I'd say, 3 known problem areas that when we do a migration, what I'd call manually, when we make the package, bring it over from Moodle into Canvas, the quizzes break. Instead of having quizzes that refer to question banks, the quiz seems to build its own question bank and it ignores the question banks that come over with the process. So the good news is the question banks do get migrated. The bad news is the quiz breaks and it no longer references those question banks. It seems to create its own question bank. So the fix for that, if we can't get K16 to fix it, is you can delete all the questions out of your quiz and then rebuild the questions pointing to the question banks. Now, that fix will work, but we think we have a better fix, and that is the K16 migration. It seemed like the K16 migration did have some way of realigning or reassociating quizzes with question banks. So that's one known problem. Second known problem is quizzes again. Pictures don't always seem to come through when we make a backup copy and bring it over from Moodle direct into Canvas. That fix is going to be harder. First, you have to make sure that the picture arrived, looking in your files, and then re-add it. If the picture didn't arrive, we'll have to go get it, bring it back in Canvas, and then reassociate it with the question. The fix for that, we hope, again, is K16. It seemed like with the quizzes that we examined, their process did a better job of retaining the images. So we're hopeful there. The third problem area is with books and lessons. Books and lessons are unique features to Moodle. No other learning management system has a feature exactly like it. And what happens is books and lessons devolve to web pages. So you will see, if you had a book or a lesson, you will have just a series of web pages in a module, which are the content from each of the files or each of the slides or pages of your book or lesson. And if your lesson had a quiz in it, then it seems like it does create a quiz. The problem with that, of course, if you know lessons, they allow branching. And there's no way for Canvas to do branching, so you will just see those web pages in the order that they're, I think, created in Moodle without any effective branching. So if you use a lot of branching, you're going to lose the instructional intention of the element that was in Moodle. And there's really not a good in-Canvas fix for that I know of. I think H5P is probably a way you might go, or you might create a video, or some even a PowerPoint might be better than just a series of web pages, but that's something only you can determine. So those are the 3 problem areas we know. But there are other things that can happen unique to every course, unique to how you structure the course and so on. And we're going to present now this process that we think will help you create the most efficient method for getting your course shell into a teachable format. So the first thing, start here. You're going to log into Canvas and make sure that you have a sandbox version of your course. So what we envision is that sandbox in Canvas is where every course that is not the teaching course or not the active live student-facing course would be built and worked on just like we do it in Moodle. So we would envision creating a sandbox version. Make sure that you've got that there. You're going to go into that course, and we recommend the very first thing that you do is go into assignments. And assignments in Canvas, as I've said over and over again, and I'll say it over and over again, is different than an assignment in Moodle. An assignment in Moodle is just the assignment activity. In Canvas, assignment is an assignment activity, but it's also the gateway to grouping all of your quizzes, discussions, assignments, anything that's gradable, if you want to do grade weighting by category, which is very common in Moodle. In Moodle, we do that in the gradebook. You go to gradebook and setup. In Canvas, there's no such thing as setup in the gradebook. The gradebook is actually simplified compared to Moodle's, less powerful, some might say. And the method for creating grade weighting groupings is in assignments. So if you use grade weighting, we recommend you start with assignments, check to see that you have the groups that you need from Moodle in order to do that grade weighting. The other thing that you can do with grouping, of course, is you can group by module, you can group by due date, you can group it however you want to, but if you do grade weighting by category, then you want to make sure that those categories exist in assignments. This is also your first chance to just look to see what gradable assignments came across. And you might compare your Moodle version to the Canvas version to make sure that everything that you expect to be a graded assignment is actually in Canvas, at least represented in the assignment groupings. Step 2, we recommend time to think about your home page and templates and things like that. So with Canvas, you have 5 homepage options. The 2 most common are module view and homepage, or a page view. The other 3 views I don't think are as useful. You may find a use for them, but I think the 2 that are most common are the module view and the homepage view. And it seems from what I've seen and looked at across the Canvas using world, module view is the default. That is the default from Canvas, and that seems to be what most places stick with. I've talked to a couple of people who were early adopters with Canvas, and they said, we tried pages and we tried templates and we tried everything. We just ended up, everyone uses module now. That may or may not be what you want to do. You have the options. So you have 5 options. This is a good time to think about that because some options include using a template. So for example, we have that modern template that you could use to import it into your class that would not only give you a home page that your students see when they first arrive to your class, but it also gives you some pedagogical approaches to structuring your modules. Now, the complication here is those tend to work better if you're designing a class from scratch. Since you're going to be working on a class that you're importing in, you'll have to massage things around because you only get the pedagogical organization in a module, then you have to do multiple copies, or it's just a little messy. It's much better, I think, to try to do that kind of thing from scratch. Now, we're assuming that you've got your course in Moodle set up with the pedagogical approach that you prefer, and you really just want to retain that. So there's really no need for a pedagogical approach imposed upon the course structure by importing a template that has that. So instead, you should probably be thinking about, do I want a home page, which would allow you to have as the first thing students see when they log into your class, something that introduces them to you and to the class and organizes how they begin thinking about interacting with the materials in your class? Or would you like them to just have the view of all of the modules so they can just start at the top and work through the modules using the Canvas navigation structures as they exist? Now, there are pluses and minuses for both of those. The thing that I would say is, if you're working with students who are very proficient online already, have already had many classes in Canvas before, or are very successful online, the module view is a great way to go. It just starts right in, gives them access to everything. And the module view is usually available unless you hide that menu structure anyway. So students quickly learn to click into modules to get there. If you're working with students who are new to online or new to Jackson College, new to you, I really recommend that you use the homepage, and at least for the first week or two, have on that homepage your information, your introduction, something that gives a student, especially a student who's fresh out of high school, who is just maybe encountering Jackson College and higher education for the first time, something that's a little more friendly than just that stark list of everything that has to do. We ran into this with Moodle. If you have been using Moodle for a while, we found that students who were fresh out of high school, when they jumped into a Moodle class, it was like, whoa, there's so much to read. It was almost overwhelming for them. And we learned to use that zero cell to create that introduction, and many hid everything except for the zero cell in Moodle, so that students had to interact with a little introduction with the instructor, a orientation, and some information, maybe a syllabus quiz, things that ease the student into that. Now, proficient students don't need that at all. Newer students do. So think about the students that you are likely to encounter when you make that decision. Then if you want, you can design your own home page, or you can use templates. Kim has already found a template that she's implementing, and we like that template pretty well. So we are also incorporating that, and that's available in Canvas Commons right now, and it's easily editable, easily used, and it begins to approach the functionality, if not the design, of the Moodle view that was the all of the pictures, the tile view, or the tile view or the grid view. So it begins to approach that functionality. So as an interface, it allows you to create a clickable button for every module. So a student comes to your page, you can give them the orientation that you want, and then you can give them buttons for each module so they can navigate to each module using that home page interface. Not a bad way to go. The other three, if I can remember them, are you have an activity stream. So the activity stream is usually visible to students over on the right-hand side, or I think when you first log into, isn't it, Sonia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you first log in to your dashboard, a lot of times you'll see some notices up there. That's part of the activity stream. That kind of stuff includes announcements, new posts in forums, and things like that. That activity stream can be the home page. So if you have a lot of activity that you want your students to see, or I'm thinking like if you had a class, maybe it was a seminar class that was all about discussions, that might not be a bad way to structure a home page. But other than that, I don't really think it's a great interface for most of the classes here at Jackson. The next one, I guess that would be number 4, would be a syllabus view. So you can put the syllabus up as the home page. May or may not be that useful. The syllabus is a tool in Canvas, unlike what we tend to think of as a flat file, just a PDF, Word document, etc. It's actually a dynamic tool. You can put all of your information like a usual syllabus, but it also dynamically builds a schedule of all of the assignments, that anything that has a due date or a grade gets put into that syllabus tool for you. And then the last option that you have is
there's the
assignment
page,
list.
modules, syllabus, activities, and assignments.
Assignment. So the assignment one is an interesting one, and my wife uses Canvas where she teaches, and she uses the assignments as the homepage for her class because her classes are totally face-to-face. She doesn't use Canvas for anything other than posting grades. So every assignment is a grade, so she uses the assignments as a homepage for her classes, and I could see that being useful. Probably not for a online class where you might want students to do some readings and things that aren't really assignments because they're not graded. So those are your homepage options. You can use a template, you can build your own, you can use modules or those others as a homepage. But now's a good time to start thinking about it. As I round out this section, know that you can change your homepage choice at any time. We just put it here because if you are starting to think about, maybe I need to do a little redesign, you might look at templates, and the homepage is the logical place to start thinking about, is there a template out there that gives me what I would like to do a redesign or a fresh design? Now we're on to step 3, module flow and structure. So in the import process, that migration process, each of your cells for Moodle is going to basically be a module. You want to check to see that the modules came across as you want them to. They tend to look like they are pretty much a one-to-one match, with some of those things that we mentioned before are problematic. But there's a little bit of a difference because Canvas does use an arrow at the bottom navigation. So when you click into something in a module, then you can use arrows to go from one to another. And when you do that, it's easy to lose sight of which module you're in. So one of the things that we recommend here is, if you find that happens, we're starting to put in a sort of like a header page, a module entry page, and a module exit page. So the first thing in a module is welcome to the module. Here's what you're going to be doing, kind of the stuff that we do, but it makes it a little more apparent that this is the start of module 1, or the module on biomechanics, or whatever it is. And then at the very end of a module, we're putting a page saying, congratulations, you have gone through this module, or this is the end of module 1. If you click down here, you're going to go to the next module. So those are
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are we supposed to still be looking at the layout that you have?
the screen share that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still at that process. We're on
Okay.
step
I just
3.
wanted to make sure.
Yep.
wanted to make sure.
Yes, thank you. We're on step 3. So this is all about the module flow and structure. You're just wanting to check to see that your modules flow and that the structures in your modules were retained from that Moodle to Canvas migration. Now, step 4, course management and navigation. Here you want to start looking at what menus are you going to provide to your students. So if you've looked into Canvas, you've seen that there are a lot of menus, and some of them have a little crossed out I next to them, meaning that they're hidden from students. We did some research on this, and what we found is the recommendation is syllabus, grades, announcements, and modules. Those are kind of the main ones that tend to be in every class. So we'll probably use that as our starting point, but you as the instructor have complete control over which of those menu items students see. Couple of recommendations here. If you don't use a menu item and you don't anticipate students needing them, keep it hidden, just reduces cognitive load. But if you are going to use it, it might make sense to unhide it. But here's the last part of that is, if you unhide a menu, meaning that it should be visible to students, but there is nothing in the module, or nothing in that menu item that students can either see or interact with or do, the menu remains hidden. So Canvas automatically hides what they would consider to be unused or unusable menu items. So don't panic if you unhide something, but in student view, you don't see it. And it's probably just because you don't have anything in there. That may mean that you have things in there that aren't published, or it's completely empty. So check that. Now we're getting to the actual real work, and that is step 5 in the content. Here we just recommend you just start at the top module and you go through and you look at every assignment and file in the module. Make sure that it's in the right order, make sure it's unhidden, meaning it's published, unless you want it hidden, meaning unpublished in Canvas, and so on. You want to make sure that it all works. So you're going to need to check every assignment, make sure that it has the points that you expect it to have, make sure that it has the method for the student to present a submission that you expect and want it to have, make sure it has the due date you want, and so on. Then you need to look at your external tools. So if you use Cengage or Pearson products, you need to make sure that those tools are installed and that you have the backend on the publisher's side configured. BibliU would be included in that. You want to make sure the BibliU link is in there, and so on. I would also add to this, even though they're not that external, but if you use Google Docs or Office 365 integrations, those are built into our Canvas. You can unhide those menus, but you want to make sure that those are present and in student view and functioning the way that you expect them to do. Speaking of student view, after you get through looking at everything as the teacher, we really like the student view. I think the student view in Canvas is a little better than the student view in Moodle. At least it's a little more apparent. It's easier to see and get out of. So click on that interact as a student button and look at your module and make sure that you can see as a student everything that you want to have your students see. Again, Canvas has this publish, unpublish. You have to make sure it's published in order for students to see it. Think of that as just hide and unhide. So go through and check it as student view. Check all of your quizzes and all of that like you always do. And then as we get to, we're wrapping up, you want to go back to assignments, and you want to make sure that you have your assignments in the assignment groupings the way you want to, and that the grades are all there, that you actually have a gradable assignment in assignments, and it shows up in your grade book as a gradable assignment in the group that you want it to group. And in that time, you might play with the grade book a bit more. Notice that you can sort and arrange your grade book in the grade book, and doing so makes no impact on the groupings that you did in assignments. So know that even though you group things in order to weight them, when you get into the grade book, you can arrange them by due date and things like that for purposes of interacting with those elements in the grade book. Doing so does not change their groupings for grade weighting and so on. And then the last step, step 6, is accessibility. There are some typical kinds of things that you want to do to check course accessibility. And we do this because it's a good idea, it's good practice, but it also is essential to make sure that if a student with a disability comes into your class, we have done the reasonable accommodations at the point of creation for every course. Those are the accommodations that make sure that there is the minimum level of accessibility for a student so that they at least know they're in their class, they can move around in the class, and then they can go to our Office of Students with Disabilities for the direct one-to-one services that they might need in order to make the class fully accessible. So those kinds of things are available to you. Any questions about this flowchart view of the process before we get into a checklist, which will have a lot more detail about each of those? I see something going on in chat. All right, very good. All right, so I'm going to put this away, and we're going to look at this migration checklist. This migration checklist has those same elements, and it goes through them with more granularity. So let me increase the size of this a little bit. Hopefully you can see that okay. Sonia did great work on this, by the way. I'm really pleased with what she did for this. So first thing, number 1, assignment grouping. And I won't read the description here. You have this document, but basically this gives you a little bit of rationale why you need to do this and some of the things that you need to look at or things that you need to do at that section. The home page, design or arrangement, or no home page. So 5 possible options, etc., etc. And notice that there's a box here. You can check it when you've completed that. So as will happen, as you're working through this, you'll be interrupted. You'll come back to it in a day or two and think, where was I? Well, this will help you with that. So here, module flow and structure. The content is grouped or chunked into manageable pieces known as modules. Here's a guide provided by Canvas for information about that if you need to. Naming convention. This is a really good thing. Name like chapter 1, Panda in the News is a better name for your module than just chapter 1. So think about that sort of thing. Again, recommendation, we're recommending that you begin and end each module with an introduction overview page that just bookends the module so that when students are using the arrow navigation, especially when they're using that, they know I've arrived at a new module, I've arrived at the end. Text headers and indentations are useful to help organize things. So here's a Canvas guide on that. And then module completion requirements and prerequisites. Here's an information piece about prerequisites that you might find useful. Then at the course level information, your management and navigation, make sure your navigation is clear and consistent. Unused menu items are hidden. Here's a Canvas guide. Course has the critical learning information like goals, objectives, standards, materials, supplements, and so on in there. Just a big overview picture. Course has expectations, participation rules, etiquette, code of conduct, and so on. Contact information for the instructor. Module level, so you're going to start working now through each module. So make sure the module has all course materials, all files, quizzes, discussions, lessons, books, and pages are in the correct order, capturing your instructional intent and so on. Make sure your collaboration tools are functioning. Links, files and videos are useful, so make sure that your links made it across, your YouTube video links made it across, and so on. External tools like these need to be, you just need to check them to make sure they're properly configured. Check it in student view, check your grades to make sure that the gradebook looks like you expect it to look like. And then here, Canvas outcomes. And here I want to make a special note about Canvas outcomes. So there are two levels of outcomes in Canvas. You may have played with them. At the class level, you can, as an instructor, you can create course level outcomes, and you can tie those outcomes to anything that you want to, assessments and so on. Now, that's great. Those are awesome. It gives you better analytics and maybe even gives the students better ideas of what they're doing well on and what they need help on. The caveat is, if you have or are going to, or when you do a CBE course, we'll want to make sure that those program level outcomes are entered into Canvas up a level. So at the institution level, because at the institution level, when you create those outcomes and then link them into a course, those can be managed and recorded more easily outside of the class, so that the program director or whoever's going to do it can assess which students have met program competencies in order to get credit and degrees and so on. So caveat, if you're using outcomes in a CBE course, don't create them at the course level. They will have to be created at the institution level. Now you can do both. You can have institution level competencies, we would think of them as, or outcomes. And then at the course level, you could create, I would think of them as more granular, maybe even almost at the objective or objective grouping level, competencies or outcomes, and link those as well. And those would provide you more information about the elements that make up each of the program level competencies that would be in the CBE course. So just know that if you're playing with competencies or outcomes, that you know the difference between course level and institution level. Finally, we get to the accessibility. You have web tools and software that you can use to help with accessibility. You have a hyperlink checkers that you can do and information about that. Guides to doing accessibility design, paragraphs, headings, etc. Checking your audio materials, and then make sure that everything that is an image has a descriptive alt tag or is marked as decorative. And then you'll be done and ready to teach using Canvas. Any questions about this course migration checklist? Agreed, Sonia did a great job on this. So for your accredited programs, you will want to decide how you want to deal with that. If you think that it would be useful to manage those at the institution level, what Jamie has talked about and what we think would work is you would choose someone in your department to manage those outcomes at the institution level. So you would get the permissions to manage those. It's kind of how we think we're working with it, but we haven't tried it out yet to make sure. But that's how we expect to. Each program is going to be responsible for managing competency sets for CBE. I would imagine that's something that Jamie is working through now. And I think the same would be true for your outside accreditation. If you think it would be useful to manage your outcomes at that institutional level, so you have a dashboard and can manage them across courses, then you would want to treat it as we would, I think, be treating CBE. Hopefully that makes sense. Any other questions? All right. Last but not least is this handy way of monitoring everything in your course at the module level in a checklist. So if you want to, you can use this to say, okay, module 1, course material, the order, are they in the right order? Check. Check all the files, check. Are the quizzes all functioning? Do they point to the grade, or do they point to the question banks like I want them to? Does it have the right points? Check. Discussion forums, are they all present? Are they configured the way I want? Check. So you can just use this. It's just a handy way. Again, you will be interrupted in your normal flow of doing this, and you'll need something like this perhaps to know where you left off, which module and in which element that you're working on in that flow, so that you can go right back to it without having to like recover, like what was my state, what was the context, where was I, start at the top, oh yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that, oh, here's the one that I need to get to. This could save you a little bit of time if you want to use this. And I think Sonia will make this available in the Word view. I think that's what this is right here. So you can edit it to put in the names of your modules, delete the modules you don't have, add modules, and so on. Any questions about this? Or anything about all, because this wraps up what we wanted to present in this session, which is the workflow that we're providing as a recommendation for you as you try to convert a migrated Moodle course in Canvas to a teachable class. Now, I want to say that this is just a recommendation. This is not a requirement by any means. If you have a way that you feel would be better for you, use it. And I expect that after you use something like this a couple of times, you'll develop shortcuts and other ways of thinking about it that would be better for you. But if this is designed to help someone who's fresh into Canvas, thinking about, oh, my course has moved over, what do I need to do? If we can create this kind of process, I think we'll save you some time, energy, and effort. To share, and we'll just take questions.
I have a question for Sonia. I was looking at her templates that she was making, and the very first one, I can click on it and it kind of shows what it would look like. But then the next two, I could really, if I click on it, I can't see like what it would look like on the homepage, if that makes sense. Like if you click on it to view like the way you have it set up, it isn't really over in the corner. It says import download, and then there's a little picture and you can kind of see how you set it up, but then it's not what you first see when you click on it.
I'll go back and look at that, Lindsay. It should have an image that shows large, just like the first one. I thought I did them all. I thought I set them all up the same way. So
Yeah, so
thank
the second and the third one aren't coming up like the first one, if that makes sense. The
I've
first
you. Yeah.
got the commons up here. I'm going to share my screen. So I see.
So if you click on the flex template or the stack template to look at it, to
This
view
one right
it.
here.
Yep.
I see you get this.
You get that instead of what you created to look like versus the very first module navigation template. That template comes up so you can actually see what it would look like from the home. I don't know if I'm explaining. See,
Right there.
Yeah, that automatically showed up. I didn't actually do anything specific for that. So I'll go back and look at those.
yeah.
And
I just wanted to check it out to kind of see which one I was going to lean towards.
Probably
the
because
class.
modules is the default homepage in that one.
Oh, I see.
See, if you click on pages and then choose the template page here, then it shows it.
But it doesn't show it the way that it would fit in the page either. So that's showing this how the script reads with no content in it.
Got
So,
it. Yeah. Good question.
That's unfortunate. Maybe I can add a screenshot to that. Thanks, Lindsay. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Any other questions?
When you're done recording, I have something that's separate, specific to respiratory.
All right. Well, I don't hear any other questions, so I will stop recording.